Another year, another Call of Duty. As a longtime fan of the franchise, I'm happy to say that this is actually a really fun demo slash beta of the latest Call of Duty. Which leads me in today's video, because while COD games are not normally known for being the most demanding games, I was still surprised at the minimum requirements for the PC version of Cold War. The recommended minimum specs suggest that you have a system running at least Windows 7, using an Intel i5 2500K, 8GB of RAM, and using at least a GTX 670 or an AMD HD 7950 for your graphics card. This is a pretty reasonable system by today's standards, and I have something very similar to see if the minimum requirements can at least play the newest Call of Duty. Well, the beta at least. Now, the system you see in front of you would have cost you around $1,000 back in 2012-2013. It features an Intel Core i5 2500K, a Z77 motherboard, 8GB of DDR3 RAM, and an AMD HD 7870 GHz edition. This would have been a pretty good bang for your buck in terms of gaming performance if this was your system back in 2012, and could probably handle most games you threw at it that was available at the time. But fast forward to today, and I was able to put this PC together for only $176 with a bit of used parts hunting, and now I'm going to see if it can play the latest Call of Duty. Now, the CPU I'm not too worried about in this build, as it's an unlocked quad-core chip that has a base speed of 3.2 GHz, but with some modest cooling like this Hyper 212 Evo, it can be easily overclocked to speeds of around 4.5 GHz with minimal effort, and this is still a potent little chip for gaming on a budget. I'm unfortunately more worried about the aging Radeon HD 7870. This might not be able to keep up with some more modern titles. This was once a fantastic card to pick up back in the day, but with only 2GB of VRAM available, this card is definitely showing its age. And while yes, I am aware that this is technically below the minimum specs listed by Treyarch, as they recommend at least an HD 7950 for an AMD card, but considering that this is technically the same GPU that's found in both the Xbox One and PS4, and was what I could find cheaply at the moment, I was actually curious to see if they can run the latest Call of Duty. Alright, so after dialing in the settings, it seems that this PC was able to achieve a smooth 60 frames a second. In this game, we just have to run at the lowest setting and at a resolution of 600 by 900. At 1080p, we saw anywhere from 30 to 40 FPS, and while consistent frame rates, I would still not call this playable at 1080p. As to have a pretty good experience in these type of games, you really want to be running closer to that 60 FPS threshold. At 900p though, the system ran quite well, achieving an average frame rate of 59.5 FPS with 1% lows of 15.7 FPS. And while those 1% and 0.1% numbers seem low, that only really happens when you first spawn in after a death, and once you're in-game running around and shooting people, it ran smoothly and was a very playable experience. Now, I did actually try overclocking the system to see if we can squeeze any more performance out of the system, and I'm happy to say with a 4.5 GHz overclock to the i5 and a slight overclock to the core on the 7870 and the 7870's memory, there was actually more performance to be had. There was about a 10% improvement in the frame rate after the overclock, and it ran a bit smoother with an average of 69.7 FPS. Nice. There was also a solid bump to the 1% and 0.1% lows, showing that the game did indeed run smoother as a whole. But frame rates don't tell the whole story, and I'm sure you've noticed in the questionable gameplay running in the background that unfortunately on some maps like the satellite map here, textures seem to not load properly, making the game a bit more difficult to play. It doesn't seem to happen with every map, but when it does, the ground seem to pop in and out of existence, and the walls seem to flicker through reality. It's great if you want to be a wannabe hacker, but pretty much unplayable if you're actually trying to play the game. It's weird because the game ran at a decent frame rate, it's just the textures were not loading properly. This happened with both the stock settings and the overclock settings that I had, so I suspect this might be more of a memory slash VRAM limitation, as the game ran pretty much at the 2GB VRAM limit at all times. I was kind of hoping it was the overclock settings, as I could just turn that off and have the game run smoothly, but nope. When returning to the default settings, it was still happening on both the satellite and actually the cartel map. I did end up looking up online to see if there were similar stories of this texture problem that was popping up. And what do you know, the people of the Reddit were also having, there were some people as well having the same texture loading problems. So To be honest, I don't know if this problem is within the game and can be fixed with an update, or if it truly is a hardware issue and you just need more than 2 gigabytes of VRAM to run the game properly. But either way, I thought I should bring that up, and hopefully there's a solution in the near future when the game does come out. But that's going to do it for me today. Let me know down in the comments if you want to see other games running on this PC, as it was fun to mess around with the hardware, with this hardware that I couldn't really get my hands on back in the day. If not, it might go back on Craigslist to someone who could really get some use out of it. Anyways, hopefully you found the video helpful or entertaining, and if you did, feel free to give it a like. Subscribe if you want to see some more, and hey, thanks so much if you made it this far into the video, and I hope you have a great day. Take care now. Bye.